Okay, so when people say democratic socialist, right? And I'm curious what you think this means. I mean, do you like capitalism?
No, I have many critiques of capitalism. And I think ultimately the definition for me of why I call myself a democratic socialist is the words of Dr. King decades ago. He said, call it democracy or call it democratic socialism. There must be a better distribution of wealth for all of God's children in this country. And that's what I'm focused on is dignity and taking on income inequality. And for too long, politicians have pretended that we're spectators to that crisis of affordability. We're actually actors, and we have the choice to exacerbate it, like Mayor Adams has done, or to respond to it and resolve it, like I'm planning to do.
Okay. So, for people who say that America was built on, and a lot of immigrants, and obviously you speak from an immigrant experience. I mean, you came as a young child, but you speak to a lot of people who came much more recently, that they come to America because they believe in capitalism. They believe that if they work hard and make a lot of money, that's part of the American dream. Do you think that's not part of the American dream?
I think the dream at its core is a dream for stability in one's life. And what you're saying, that you work hard enough and that you then reap the benefits, too many New Yorkers, and Americans for that matter, are working 8 hours and then still feeling like they haven't made enough money to keep living in the city they call home. And ultimately, what I'm focused on is making the city affordable for everyone, not to win an ideological argument, but to deliver on the mandate of this
So when Mayor
campaign.
Adams, you just heard him come out and he said, soup, silver spoon. He talked about manicured nails to refer to you, right? I was looking at him. You can show him to everybody. What do you say to him?
I understand what he's doing. He's trying to distract from his own record. His is a record where he raised rents on more than 2 million New Yorkers by 9%, and he's considering another 8% increase. His is a record of raising the water bill to the highest it's been in 13 years, supporting Con Edison when they wanted to increase New Yorkers' gas and electric bills by $65 a month. I would much rather talk about me than I would about his record if I was him. And so that's what he's going to be doing over the next few months. And we will continue to remind New Yorkers what's on the ballot. It's affordability.
With ICE agents that has been going on under Mayor Adams, and he has spoken out. Here's what he said.
Good luck with that. Federal law trumps him every day, every hour of every minute. We're going to be in New York City. Game on. We're coming.
Game on. He's coming. What do you say?
That I'm going to be here to stand up and fight back. And unlike the current mayor, I'm not going to be working alongside the Trump administration to build the single largest deportation force in American history. I'm going to actually represent each and every New Yorker. And that includes immigrant New Yorkers. And that means standing up for the laws of this city, like our sanctuary city policies, which have kept New Yorkers safe for decades and were defended by Republicans and Democrats alike for years until we got this mayor who fearmongered about them so extensively.
Does that involve the NYPD?
It means that the NYPD would actually serve New Yorkers and not assist ICE in their operations. We recently saw ICE agents.
So they would not assist ICE?
Not assisting ICE, because ultimately their job is public safety. And I know officers who are signing up to take on serious crimes, not to be a part of the force that is arresting a pastor who's peacefully observing the arrest of a migrant at Federal Plaza.
All right, so a moment ago you talked about how you didn't know if you'd get 50,000 votes, and you ended up with 50,000 volunteers. They knocked on doors. There are many in the country who might look at that and say, okay, that makes me think of somebody else. Somebody else who took on I'm trying to think of the right word to use, but somebody who expected to win and therefore didn't campaign that hard and lost. And the person who did that was Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, right? Famously also here in New York. She endorsed you early. She helped you. She just spoke to Manu Raju, our Manu Raju, a few moments ago. She said the Democratic Party needs to pay attention to your success right now. Here's what she just told him.
We have a choice to listen to that message that people are sending us or not. This isn't just about Mr. Mamdani as an individual. This is about the message that the people of New York City are trying to send to our party.
So there's now talk, that your victory puts her in a whole new light, right? It puts her and Bernie Sanders, not that they were seen as fringe, but they were seen as a wing of the party. And that instead of being a wing, that becomes more of the center, and that you are part of that. Do you see it that way? And do you see those who say, look, your victory propels her to a presidential run in 2028?
She's been an inspiration, and it's been an honor to be represented by her as an assembly member in Astoria for many years. And I think about a senior who works at a child care center that I met in Sunnyside, Queens, who told me that I'm not a progressive, but I realized when I looked at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders, they were the only ones who were willing to fight for me. Yeah. And that's what so many New Yorkers and Americans understand, is that these are the two individuals who have been willing to take on this oligarchy and actually stand up for dignity for Americans.
Before you go, one last thing. Bill Ackman, I just mentioned him as right, he's the billionaire hedge fund manager, but he's not alone. There are a lot like him, whether it's Ken Griffin or CEOs of big banks. Would you meet with them?
I'll meet with anyone. I will meet with them and I'll explain why I believe in the necessity of raising the top corporate tax rate. And I'd also tell Bill Ackman that I firmly disagree with his attempt to dismantle diversity, equity, and inclusion across the country, because it's not only against the morals of so many, it's also against the actual bottom line for so many businesses. And as a businessman, he should understand that.
All right. Well, Assemblyman, thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
To close that he used to keep open for years because of a fear of who may come in. I spoke to a friend of mine after October 7th who told me about going to his synagogue for Shabbat services and hearing the door open behind him and turning around with a tremor going up his back, not knowing who was walking in and what they wished for them. And ultimately, it's through the conversations I've had with Jewish New Yorkers that I have developed a proposal for the Department of Community Safety that would include an 800% increase in funding for hate crime prevention programs. Because ultimately, we cannot simply say that anti-Semitism has no home in this city or no place in this country. We have to do more than talk about it. We have to tackle it. And that's what we will do through this funding and through this commitment. We will root out bigotry across the 5 boroughs.
As you're looking to kind of appeal to people or connect with people who are skeptical, what does that look like for you over the next couple of months to the members of the Jewish community, to some of these leaders who have been critical? What should they expect and anticipate from you?
They should expect my continuing to reach out, most especially to those who are concerned or who do disagree, because ultimately in politics too often you surround yourself only with those that are quickest to say yes or quickest to already be in the same place as you, when in fact we have to be able to navigate that disagreement and that tension. And I often think about the words of a previous mayor, Mayor Koch, who said that if you agree with me on 9 out of 12 issues, vote for me. 12 out of 12, see a psychiatrist. And I think of an elder Jewish woman who came up to me at B'nai Jeshurun, a synagogue on the Upper West Side many months ago after a Democratic Club forum, who whispered in my ear, I disagree with you on one issue. I'm pretty sure you know which one it is, but I agree with you on the others, and I'm going to be ranking you. And I think that ability to understand that even in disagreement, it's still rooted in a shared sense of humanity, that is something that makes this city great, and that is something that I will deliver as the next mayor of this city.
You're going to be dealing with tremendous attacks from MAGA Republicans. We've already seen that over the last 24 hours, including from Stephen Miller, Elise Stefanik, the NRCC. They're already trying to run an Islamophobic campaign against you, which I will just note, and you've lived this, but for people who are just tuning in, is a continuation of some of the tactics that we saw during the primary, but it's going to come tenfold. I know you know that, but how are you going to handle that personally?
You know, it's sad in that in one sense it's unsurprising, and in another it is still deeply disappointing to see what politics has become in this moment. To have to deal with regular death threats where I'm told that someone is going to blow up my car and is going to kill me and my family and the people that I love. And I've spoken to many Muslims across this city who have shared that their fear of having to be essentially branded a terrorist just by living in public life is one that keeps them preferring life in the shadows, life outside of that specter. And this is not the way that we can have our city be. It's not the way that we can have our country be.
That's just the beginning. And you've got, I mean, Donald Trump Jr., I thought you got money from the Muslims in the Middle East, Donald Trump Jr., and now you're going to turn on people who gave you billions of dollars for your, I hope they take the money back, but what a vile, and Charlie Kirk and all of them, but, you know, it's the members of Congress, council people in New York calling for Mondami to be deported now. This is very dangerous. And my concern is the anti-Muslim bigotry ends up manifesting as hate crimes. Now, if it just stops here, it's one thing, but I don't think it's going to stop here. And my real concern are hate crimes against Muslim Americans, especially kids at school getting bullied, or women with hijabs are often the target because they're most visible. People see them with a hijab and they know what they're about, but they're Muslim. So what's your reaction to your, I guess he's your cousin, and these others saying this vile stuff?
Well, look, he's a vile human being who's accomplished nothing in his meaningless, miserable little life. And he is, unfortunately, and this is one of the things I most resent about Donald, my uncle, is that is the people he has subjected us to. Because, unfortunately, including Donald, we have to pay attention to what they say, not because their opinions matter, but because millions of people listen to them because they have a platform by virtue of their relationship with Donald. So it is extraordinarily dangerous, as you say. And I agree with you. It is not going to stop here. It's going to get worse. And make no mistake, this mayoral race in New York City is going to be nationalized in a way we may not have seen happen before. And I realize I just said something like Donald. But in this case, it happens to be true. Like he says all the time, it's like nothing I've ever seen before. This will be nationalized in a way I don't think any race ever has been, any local race ever has been. The money from the dark money coming in, from the right, it's going to be worrisome and fascinating. I think it will also depend. I mean, I don't think this will impact the anti-Muslim bigotry, unfortunately, but in terms of the sort of tone of the race, I think whether or not Cuomo decides to run as an independent, which he really shouldn't, will also make a bit of a difference. And it's going to be rough because it will not be a race that is confined to New York City. Like we could handle it. We could handle it.
Exactly.
But it's the rest of the world that won't be able to.
New York has just booed Donald Trump off the island, off the peninsula, off the entire region by picking Mamdani. Because this isn't just, we're this is a democratically heavy area in New York City and we're going to pick a Democrat and, we're going to pick somebody that's, fairly moderate and, so it's a soft rejection of Trump. No. This is everything Trump isn't. Mamdani is the biggest rejection of Trump we've seen in years. Because let's be clear, if you want to really say no to Donald Trump, you don't do it with a moderate. You don't do it with a moderate Democrat, and I'm going to come to Canada. You don't do it with a Carney, even. You don't do it with a fellow capitalist. You do it with a democratic socialist. If we really want to reject them, you'd pick the NDP in Canada. Canadians failed to do that, but the Americans succeeded by picking a democratic socialist in Mamdani in New York. That is the biggest rejection of Trump. Now, I want to make this clear. It's not just a rejection of Trump. It's also a rejection of capitalism. Trump is capitalism personified. Capitalism isn't about free trade even. It's not about free markets. It's not about democracy. Capitalism is about enriching the property-owning class at the expense of the working class. And that is what Trump loves. He loved it before he was in politics. He's loved it while in office. And he'll love it till he's, 6 feet under for the rest of his life. Right? And that's what his party loves. Many Democrats do as well. But that's what the Republican Party is about. And so, Mamdani is the biggest amount of booing you could get from an electorate, saying, boo Donald, yay democratic socialism. Democrats, we want a fighter, because let's be clear, when a moderate Democrat wins, Republicans aren't happy. We can agree. But Republicans aren't terrified. They'll lie and say Biden's a socialist, but they don't believe it. What really scares them is when a Mamdani or an AOC or a Bernie wins. That's when they fear that real democracy is coming.